Remember that dream meal? The one that promised to banish kitchen chaos forever? Chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, ready in 2 minutes flat. It was everywhere. Your Instagram feed was a sea of impossibly toned influencers, all grinning like they just unlocked some secret life hack, holding those sleek little black trays. It felt like the future of food had finally arrived, a perfect fusion of health and convenience. But then, almost overnight, that glossy facade began to crack. Suddenly, the same feeds that once celebrated Factor were swamped with a different kind of picture. Gray, unappetizing meat, suspiciously oozing bags, and a headline that sent a shiver down everyone's spine. The dream started to look a lot like a nightmare. In just the last 12 months, Factor, once the darling of the meal delivery world, has racked up hundreds of Better Business Bureau complaints. Its parent company, HelloFresh, paid millions to settle a California auto-renewal lawsuit. Cast your mind back to the early days of the pandemic. Grocery aisles felt less like places to shop and more like war zones, didn't they? The dishes? Endless. And that dreaded daily question, what's for dinner? It wasn't just a question, it was the spark for a household debate, a source of constant stress in an already stressful world. Then, a beacon of hope appeared. An ad pops up. Healthy meals cooked by real chefs, delivered fresh, no prep, no mess. It sounded too good to be true, but Factor checked every single box. For busy parents, it was a lifeline. Fitness influencers swooned over the perfectly portioned, macro-friendly options. Even the most meticulous macro counters found solace in their low-carb, high-protein offerings. It wasn't just food, it was a promise of reclaimed time, simplified health, and a calmer kitchen. The messaging was relentless, hitting you from every angle. Save 10 hours a week. Finally, hit your fitness goals. Never look at a cutting board again. Factor's branding was a masterclass in selling both convenience and virtue simultaneously. A potent combination for exhausted consumers desperate for a break. People weren't just buying meals, they were buying back their time and peace of mind. Orders exploded, revenue quadrupled at an astonishing rate, and HelloFresh, already a titan in the meal kit space, saw the writing on the wall. They snapped Factor up, eager to ride this burgeoning ready-to-eat wave, believing they'd found their next big growth engine. For a brief, shining moment, it truly felt like the final boss of mealtime had been defeated. The victory screen was practically loading. You could almost hear the celebratory music. But here's the spoiler. That victory screen never fully loaded. The game, it turned out, was far from over. My own personal honeymoon with Factor, it lasted a glorious 3 weeks. Everything was perfect. Then came week 4. I remember it vividly. I opened a tray labeled Tuscan herb chicken and, well, let's just say what greeted me looked suspiciously like cat food. Generously sprinkled with something that might have been oregano. My appetite vanished faster than a free sample at Costco. Naturally, I emailed support. Their response? A rather impersonal $10 credit. Not exactly the apology I was hoping for, but then I noticed a faint rumble, a growing buzz on Twitter. I wasn't alone. Other users were posting similar horror stories. Mysterious slime, unsettling mold, even tiny, unidentifiable shards of plastic. One user whose photo went viral posted a picture of a mold spot that was eerily shaped exactly like the state of Ohio. It racked up 2,000 likes, and guess how many responses from the brand? 0. Around the same time, nutrition forums, those havens for health-conscious foodies, started flagging something alarming. The sodium numbers in Factor meals were routinely topping 1,200 milligrams. Think about that for a second. That's half a day's recommended allowance in a single tray, often marketed to heart-healthy athletes. Redditors, with their characteristic wit, started joking that Factor meals were basically salt licks with protein. It wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a serious health concern lurking beneath the surface of that dietitian-approved claim. The cheerful facade of Factor was wobbling, clearly under strain. Yet, the marketing machine, flush with pandemic tailwinds and a seemingly endless supply of venture capital, just kept rolling on. Business as usual, or so it seemed from the outside. Internally, though, it was a different story. Customer service tickets were piling up faster than their reps could churn out those copy-pasted apologies. The cracks were small, yes, but they were appearing everywhere, a growing web of discontent that hinted at bigger problems to come. Then came October 2025. It was a Friday, the kind of day companies love to drop bad news, hoping it'll get buried in the weekend news cycle. But this wasn't just a news dump. It exploded into a mushroom cloud of concern. The USDA issued a public health alert, a stark warning tying spinach and certain HelloFresh ready-made products to an ongoing listeria outbreak. This wasn't some minor hiccup. This was serious. We're talking 20 reported illnesses and, tragically, 4 deaths nationwide. The supplier for that tainted spinach, Fresh Realm, wasn't just supplying HelloFresh directly, they were also feeding Factor's production line. Suddenly, the two brands, though distinct, were inextricably linked in a very unsettling way. Now let's talk about listeria. It's a sneaky bacterium, incredibly resilient. It can grow even under refrigeration, which is terrifying when you think about fresh meals. For healthy individuals, it might mean a bad stomachache. But for vulnerable people, the elderly, pregnant women, those with weakened immune systems, listeria can hospitalize or even kill. It's a silent, invisible threat that turns everyday food into a potential weapon. The news sparked absolute pandemonium. Frantic parent Facebook groups lit up with warnings. Doctors appeared on morning shows, gravely advising viewers to toss anything with spinach from their fridges. And of course, a flood of "I told you so" posts erupted from ex-customers who felt vindicated in their earlier complaints about quality. The stock market reacted swiftly and brutally. Shares of HelloFresh tumbled 10% in after-hours trading, a clear sign of investor panic. What did Factor do? They issued a quiet recall notice, buried 3 clicks deep on their website. No push email, no urgent push notification, nothing that would immediately alert their paying customers. Many customers learned the news not from the company they trusted with their food, but from a viral TikTok video. Think about that for a moment. Learning about a potentially deadly foodborne illness from a social media trend before your own inbox tells you. Trust, once shattered like that, isn't just hard to regain, it's practically impossible to reheat. It showed a profound disconnect between the company and its customers, prioritizing damage control over customer safety and transparency. This wasn't an isolated incident either. Going back to 2022, HelloFresh faced an E. coli alert related to ground beef in their kits, highlighting a worrying pattern of recurring food safety concerns within the group. The challenges of managing cross-contamination, ensuring proper temperature control during transit, and navigating complex allergen management across multiple suppliers in the meal kit industry are immense. But these repeated incidents suggest systemic vulnerabilities. If you really want to see a brand bleed goodwill, just watch what happens when canceling your subscription feels like trying to escape a timeshare. It's a special kind of frustrating. The Better Business Bureau complaints against Factor surged past 1,000 in just 3 years, with nearly 300 pouring in during the last 12 months alone. And the themes? Oh, they're depressingly familiar. I canceled, but they still charged me. My box never arrived, and I can't get a refund. Customer service ghosted me for weeks, sometimes months. These aren't isolated incidents. They're a pattern so egregious that California's Department of Justice took notice. In August 2025, HelloFresh, Factor's parent company, agreed to pay a whopping $7.5 million to resolve allegations of deliberately labyrinthine auto-renewal policies. The lawsuit didn't mince words. It described dark pattern checkboxes, those sneaky little opt-ins designed to trick you. It called out misleading skip buttons that didn't actually skip anything, but instead renewed your subscription. And it detailed phone wait times that were longer than a DMV line on a Monday morning, intentionally designed to make you give up. This wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate strategy to make canceling so difficult that customers would simply throw their hands up in frustration. Even now, if you scroll through Trustpilot, you'll find fresh 1-star novellas being posted daily. These aren't just short complaints, they're detailed, often heartbreaking accounts of consumer frustration. And the company's official replies? They read like Mad Libs. "We're so sorry you feel this way. We value your feedback, but we're looking into it." Generic, empty words that offer no real solution or empathy. For many frustrated customers, filing a chargeback with their bank became the only reliable way out. Consumer forums are full of stories from people who say it was easier to dispute the charge than to cancel through the company itself. What does that translate to? Regulators and credit card issuers clearly trust the consumer's account of events far more than they trust the company's. That's a damning indictment. To truly understand why Factor keeps stumbling, why it feels like they're constantly tripping over their own feet, we have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. We have to look at HelloFresh, its German parent company. For a while now, HelloFresh has been aggressively slashing costs. We've seen them closing distribution centers like the one in Nuneaton, UK, and another significant facility in Texas, leading to approximately 273 layoffs in just one March memo. These aren't just minor adjustments, these are major operational cutbacks. Why? Because their quarterly revenue slid a significant 9.5% year over year, and they've trimmed their profit guidance not once, but twice. They're feeling the pinch, and when a giant like HelloFresh feels the pinch, those pressures inevitably trickle down. Labor activists have pointed to a worrying pattern here. Speed-ups inside warehouses, productivity quotas so impossibly tight that workers reportedly skip essential bathroom breaks just to keep up. There are repeated, serious allegations of union busting, painting a picture of an environment where employee well-being takes a backseat to efficiency, and it doesn't stop there. A 2022 investigation by a German newsroom alleged HelloFresh used suppliers with links to deeply disturbing child labor practices in Southeast Asian coconut farms. The company, predictably, denied direct responsibility, yet they quietly dropped the supplier. This speaks volumes about a corporate culture where the relentless pursuit of speed and margin often outweighs ethical considerations. Factor isn't just borrowing HelloFresh's infrastructure, it's inhaling its culture. When corporate HQ treats speed and margin as if they're the very oxygen it breathes, corners inevitably get sliced. What kind of corners? Quality assurance, the rigorous vetting of suppliers, and crucially, the headcount for customer support. The result? A ready-to-eat brand that isn't always ready when it arrives, and on occasion, isn't even safe to eat. It's a systemic issue, not just a few bad apples. All right, let's talk macros. Factor's website still proudly advertises dietitian-designed meals for a balanced lifestyle. But when I spoke with registered dietitians about this claim, they didn't just laugh, they winced. The reality, as they pointed out, is quite different. Sodium, for instance, averages a staggering 700 to 1,200 milligrams per meal. For anyone trying to manage hypertension or just maintain good heart health, that's not just high, is a deal breaker. It's a significant portion of your daily recommended intake in one sitting. And those added sugars? They often hover around 12 to 18 grams in breakfast skillets. To put that in perspective, that's more sugar than you'd find in some candy bars. Is that really what you expect from a healthy meal? What's more, the calories per tray can swing wildly, from a lean 350 to a hefty 900, often with no obvious visual cue to warn you. So, if you're a customer meticulously tracking your intake, perhaps chasing weight loss targets, you can feel completely ambushed by these discrepancies. It's a game of nutritional roulette. Sure, you can filter by keto or calorie smart, and those filters might give you a false sense of control, but they often miss the bigger picture. The pervasive use of ultra-processed ingredients and long lists of stabilizers designed to extend shelf life rather than enhance nutrition. Now, Factor isn't uniquely evil here, let's be fair. Most national meal chains face similar constraints, driven by the demands of mass production and shelf stability. But the crucial difference is that Factor explicitly markets itself as the healthy, virtuous option. That vast, gaping chasm between the slick ad copy and the actual biochemistry of the food, that's where consumer disappointment curdles into a profound sense of betrayal. It's not just a marketing misstep, it's a broken promise to your body. Let's not forget about the environmental footprint. Every single tray arrives in what can only be described as a cardboard coffin, meticulously insulated with gel packs that politely instruct you to reuse or dispose in trash. The unspoken translation, of course, is landfill. Environment blogs, the watchdogs of our planet, estimate that each Factor meal generates an astonishing 3 times the packaging of a grocery store equivalent. Think about that for a moment. 3 times the waste for one meal. For a demographic that often skews younger and is generally more eco-aware, this isn't just an inconvenience, it's a deal breaker. It clashes directly with their values. Some customers, motivated purely by environmental concerns, have even canceled their subscriptions in protest. When they reach out to support, they're typically met with rehearsed responses about evaluating greener materials or exploring sustainable options. In other words, corporate speak for "we hear you, but we're not changing anything yet." The result? Frustration builds, trust erodes, and the brand's sustainability image takes another hit. It's a clear case of greenwashing, where the appearance of environmental responsibility takes precedence over genuine action. The meal kit space. Investors once absolutely adored it. Back during the pandemic lockdowns, it felt like a forever market, a guaranteed golden ticket. Everyone was stuck at home, desperate for convenience, and meal kits seemed like the perfect solution. But then, reality started to bite. Restaurants reopened, offering the allure of dining out again. Grocery stores rapidly pivoted, offering curbside pickup and robust delivery options, competing directly with meal services. And then, shipping costs, always a challenge in this business, ballooned, eating into already thin margins. HelloFresh's market value has collapsed from its 2021 peak, losing almost 90% of its valuation in just a few years. That's a staggering loss, a clear signal of investor skepticism. Factor, once touted as the shining growth engine that would propel HelloFresh into new markets, is now, frankly, a line item that executives seem to dodge in earnings calls. It's become an uncomfortable topic, a reminder of unmet expectations. Those cost-cutting measures we talked about, they show up in tangible ways. Customers swear their chicken strips shrank, portions just don't feel as generous as they once did. And then there's the coupon warfare. Browse any podcast, and you'll hear Factor, get 45% off. So often it starts to sound like a parody. Heavy promotional codes, while great for attracting new signups, primarily draw in price-sensitive buyers, the very customers least likely to stick around when that discount inevitably ends. This accelerates churn, forcing the company to pour even more money into marketing just to tread water. It's a treadmill that's getting faster and faster while the motor smokes, threatening to seize up completely. It's a desperate cycle, and it's not sustainable. Beyond that hefty California auto renewal settlement, Factor is wading into a legal quicksand of scattered class action seedlings. We're talking about one sprouting up in Florida, alleging deceptive free box promotions that weren't quite so free. Another in Illinois claims moldy food caused not just disgust, but genuine emotional distress. Now, none of these have reached trial yet, but the mere existence of these lawsuits is problematic. Legal fees add up quickly, even for preliminary skirmishes. And the real danger? Discovery. That's where internal emails, memos, and documents that nobody wants on the public record suddenly become fair game. Imagine the kind of unflattering truths that could emerge from those archives. But there's an even bigger shadow looming. Securities lawyers are eyeing a potentially massive risk. If regulators decide that Factor, or by extension, HelloFresh, misrepresented its food safety protocols to investors, HelloFresh could face severe penalties under Sarbanes-Oxley disclosure rules. For those not steeped in legal jargon, Sarbanes-Oxley is all about corporate accountability and transparency. especially regarding financial reporting and internal controls. If they lied or omitted critical information about food safety risks that impacted their business, the financial bleeding that we've seen so far, that might just be the beginning. The legal quicksand could become a full-blown financial sinkhole. So is there a path back for Factor? To survive, let alone thrive, they need to do 3 things, and they need to do them fast. First, radical transparency on safety. No more burying recall notices. Second, a one-click cancellation button that actually works, without a fight. And third, a serious menu reformulation that drops sodium below 700 milligrams without making the food taste like cardboard. Early signs, frankly, are mixed. On the safety front, they did hire a former FDA official as their VP of quality, which sounds promising. And they claim to be rolling out test and hold protocols, meaning every lot is screened before shipping. That's a step in the right direction, if genuinely implemented and maintained. On the cancellation front, they've just promised a simplified digital flow. By the second quarter of 2026, yes, you heard that right, a full year away. That's not exactly a rapid response to a critical customer pain point. And on nutrition, crickets, absolute silence. Some loyalists, bless their hearts, still post sweaty gym selfies, proudly holding their Factor trays, macros scrawled on them in Sharpie. Maybe that devoted niche following is enough to keep the lights on for a while. But growth fueled solely by influencer goodwill? That's a brittle strategy, a house of cards built on shaky ground. One more recall, one more viral TikTok of mold, one more wave of customer service nightmares, and that house of cards folds. It's a precarious position, and the margin for error is razor thin. If this story is making you rethink what's lurking in your fridge, then you absolutely need to hit that subscribe button. I'm dropping deep dives like this every single week. And if you've had your own Factor horror story, or hey, maybe even a redemption tale, drop a comment below. I genuinely read every single one. Your experiences are part of this bigger narrative. All right, so what can you do about all this? First, and this is crucial, treat ready-to-eat meals like you would raw chicken. Don't just blindly trust. Open the tray, give it a good sniff, scan it carefully for any fuzz, any discoloration, anything that looks off. If the texture feels slimy, do not taste test it, just in case. Your health isn't worth the risk. When in doubt, throw it out. Second, always pay with a credit card. Federal law gives you a powerful tool here. 60 days to dispute a charge if something goes wrong. That's your safety net. Third, be meticulous. Screen capture your cancellation confirmation. Save any chat logs you have with customer service. If billing continues after you've clearly canceled, file a Better Business Bureau complaint. Regulators really do pay attention to patterns, and your individual complaint combined with hundreds of others can force action. Fourth, and perhaps most powerfully, vote with your wallet. Brands that deliberately bury safety updates or that count on you to simply give up after 20 minutes of soul-crushing hold music, frankly, don't deserve your autopay. The average American spends about $150 a month on subscription food services. Imagine if every dollar spent was a referendum on how you want the industry to behave. If we collectively demand better, companies will be forced to listen. Factor's very public meltdown isn't just about one company's missteps. It's a fascinating and frankly sobering case study in what happens when venture-scale growth targets crash head-on into the gritty realities of real-world supply chains, the very real limits of human labor, and the undeniable complexities of human metabolism. The meal delivery sector in its early days promised to revolutionize dinner, to change how we eat forever. But the truth is, margins in this business are razor thin, food is inherently perishable, and customers, rightly so, are incredibly picky. Investors, bless their optimistic hearts, keep hunting for the next software-style, scale at zero marginal cost play. They seem to forget one fundamental truth: chicken spoils a lot faster than code. You can't just patch a bad meal with an update. Until the entire sector admits it's part of the food industry, with all its inherent challenges and responsibilities, and not just another tech startup, we should probably expect more recalls, more sneaky subscription traps, and a lot more disappointed kitchens. The fundamental disconnect between the tech bro mentality and the realities of handling perishable goods is a chasm that few have successfully bridged. So, is Factor the worst company on earth? Honestly, not even close. Plenty of frozen dinners out there have far worse macros, packed with even more sodium and artificial ingredients. And let's be real, plenty of gyms hide nastier cancellation traps than Factor ever did. But here's the kicker. Factor sold itself as the answer. It priced itself at a premium, promising a superior experience, a healthier lifestyle, and unparalleled convenience. And then, it fumbled the absolute basics: safety, honesty, and service. It tripped over its own ambition. The brand might survive, perhaps in a smaller, cheaper, more humbled form, a shadow of its former self. But for now, that sleek black tray that once promised to buy you 10 precious hours a week might just end up costing you more time fighting bogus charges, waiting endlessly on hold, or, heaven forbid, frantically Googling symptoms after a suspicious bite. If the ready-to-eat revolution still sounds tempting after all this, then by all means, go in with both eyes wide open. And maybe, just maybe, keep a backup sandwich in the fridge. Because when the marketing smoke finally clears, the oldest food safety rule in the book still applies, and it applies with chilling clarity. When in doubt, throw it out. Your health and your peace of mind are simply not worth the gamble.
I know you're not following what I'm saying anyway, right? That's okay, that doesn't matter. The real question is this: is all this legal? Absolutely fucking not.